I thought she was my biggest cheerleader. Turns out she was the reason I kept getting rejected. My name's Saffron, I'm 26 years old, and I work as a UX designer in Austin. 3 months ago, I discovered my best friend Vesper had been systematically destroying my career opportunities for the past 4 years. While I was thanking her for reviewing my portfolio and being my reference, she was telling recruiters I was difficult to work with and editing my design files to include rookie mistakes. The worst part, she did it all with a smile, holding my hand through each rejection she'd orchestrated. Vesper and I met at a design bootcamp in 2019. We were both career changers. I'd left teaching, she'd abandoned accounting, bonded instantly over imposter syndrome and 3 a.m. project sessions fueled by Red Bull and panic. We graduated together, celebrated getting jobs at different companies, moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in East Austin to save money. Every Sunday, we'd meet at this coffee shop called Brew to review each other's work. She'd give me feedback on my designs. I'd help her with user research. I genuinely thought we were building our careers together. The first sign something was wrong came 8 months ago. I'd interviewed at this amazing startup called Prism. Felt like I nailed it. The hiring manager basically told me the job was mine, just needed to check references. Vesper was my peer reference. Who better than another designer who knew my work intimately? A week later, they said they'd decided to go in another direction. The hiring manager seemed cold in the rejection email, nothing like our warm interview. Vesper comforted me that night, said they probably had an internal candidate all along. We split a bottle of wine and she helped me improve my portfolio for next time. 3 more rejections followed the same pattern. Great interview, enthusiasm from the team, then ice-cold rejection after reference checks. Mozilla, Shopify, even a small agency where the creative director had been my bootcamp mentor. Each time, Vesper was either my reference or had helped me prepare my portfolio specifically for that role. She'd spend hours with me, adjusting spacing, suggesting color changes, recommending which projects to include. After the Shopify rejection, she said maybe I was seeming too eager in interviews, suggested I play it cooler, act less excited about opportunities. I actually started doubting myself, maybe I was the problem. Then came the laptop incident. Vesper borrowed my MacBook because hers was at the Apple Store for repairs. When she returned it, all my recent Figma files were corrupted. 6 months of work, gone, except for the old stuff I'd backed up to Dropbox. She was so apologetic, helped me recreate some designs from memory. Later, I found out from her roommate that her laptop was never broken. But even then, I just thought maybe she'd needed mine for something embarrassing, like OnlyFans or whatever. I didn't suspect sabotage. The Glassdoor review appeared in October. Anonymous, but clearly about my current company, Vertex Design. It mentioned specific projects I'd worked on, complained about toxic team culture in ways that sounded like they came from an insider. My boss Chen asked if I was happy, said they'd noticed I seemed disengaged lately. The review mentioned details only someone close to me would know: my desk location, my lunch habits, even a joke I'd made about our coffee machine. Vesper suggested someone at work had it out for me, helped me brainstorm who might be targeting me. Everything changed when Ashwin joined our team last month. Senior designer from San Francisco, super talented, kind of intimidating. During his second week, he mentioned he knew Vesper from a private Slack community for designers. She's hilarious, he said. Her design roast sessions are brutal but funny. I asked what he meant. Turns out, Vesper regularly shared work samples in this 500-person Slack, asking for feedback on junior designer work she was mentoring. The work was mine, barely anonymized. She'd change the company name but keep everything else. My Nike redesign became Mike Athletic Wear. My wellness app became a mindfulness application. Hundreds of designers had been critiquing my work, calling it amateur, pointing out flaws that didn't exist until Vesper added them. I felt physically sick. Started digging deeper that night. Found the Slack community by pretending to be a new designer looking for mentorship. The archives went back 2 years. Vesper had posted my work 43 times. The comments were brutal. This is why bootcamp grads struggle. Basic design principles completely ignored. I wouldn't hire this person for an internship. She'd respond with crying laughing emojis, saying her mentee was trying their best. The worst part was seeing her add deliberate mistakes before posting. She'd misalign elements, use clashing colors, break grid systems, then screenshot and share. My actual work versus what she shared was like night and day. I confronted her last Tuesday at our usual coffee shop, laid out printed screenshots, watched her face cycle through surprise, denial, then this weird smugness. You were getting too much attention. She finally said. Everyone was always talking about Saffron's natural talent, Saffron's creative eye. What about those of us who had to work for it? She admitted to telling recruiters I was difficult but talented, that I'd probably job hop within 6 months. Said she'd been protecting companies from my inevitable disappointment when I'd leave for better opportunities. The delusion was staggering. By the way, if stories like this are your thing, hit subscribe so you don't miss the wild conclusion. The reference sabotage was worse than I'd imagined. She showed me her phone, almost proud, with a drafted reference email for my latest application to Google. It praised my design skills but mentioned challenges with feedback, occasional missed deadlines, and difficulty collaborating with senior stakeholders. All lies wrapped in enough truth to seem credible. She'd been sending variations of this to every recruiter who'd contacted her. 4 years of opportunities, destroyed by someone I'd trusted with everything. I moved out that night, stayed with Ashwin. Actually, turns out he'd suspected something was off and wanted to help. Started calling every company I'd applied to, explaining the situation. Most were sympathetic, but said positions were filled. Chen at Vertex was furious when I showed him everything, said he'd write me the strongest recommendation letter of his career, but the damage was done. My reputation in Austin's design community was tainted. Vesper had been playing the long game, ensuring I'd never surpass her. The apartment we'd shared, the late-night portfolio sessions, the Sunday coffee reviews, all of it was her keeping me close enough to control. You know what gets me about Saffron's story? The calculated patience of it all? Vesper spent 4 years pretending to be supportive while systematically destroying every opportunity. That's not just jealousy, that's obsession. And using that Slack community to crowdsource mockery while playing the concerned mentor, that's sociopathic. If your friend is always there for your failures, but mysteriously absent for your successes, if they're constantly helping, but things keep going wrong, pay attention. Sometimes your biggest supporter is actually your biggest threat. But if you think that's twisted, wait until you hear what Coral did to Lennox. This woman didn't just befriend her, she befriended her entire family, turned them against her, and tried to literally replace her. Imagine your own mother calling you toxic because your best friend has been feeding her lies for months. That's where we're going next. And trust me, it gets so much worse. By the time I realized what was happening, my own mother was calling me toxic. My name's Lennox, I'm 23 years old, and I'm in my 2nd year of veterinary school. 4 months ago, my entire family staged an intervention for my supposed narcissistic behavior, all orchestrated by my best friend Coral. She'd spent 6 months infiltrating my family, becoming the daughter my mother always wanted, while systematically painting me as an ungrateful, selfish child. The woman I'd let crash on my couch when she lost her job had literally tried to steal my family, and she almost succeeded. Coral and I were college roommates who stayed close after graduation. She was the fun one, always had wild stories, knew everyone, could make anyone laugh. When she got fired from her 3rd marketing job last year for creative differences, I didn't hesitate to offer my couch. I was living in this tiny apartment near campus, drowning in anatomy textbooks and student loans, but friends help friends, right? My family loved her from the few times she'd visited during holidays. My mom, Patricia, especially thought Coral was such a bright spirit who brought energy to our quiet family dinners. The boundary crossing started subtly. Coral began texting my mom directly, just funny memes and good morning messages. "Your mom's so cool," she'd say. "Mine never gets my humor." I thought it was sweet that they connected. Mom had been lonely since my dad's death 3 years ago, and if Coral's friendship made her smile, where was the harm? Then Mom mentioned Coral had told her about my drinking problem. I'd had 2 glasses of wine at a classmate's party. Coral had spun it into me coming home wasted, crying about school stress. When I confronted her, she said she was just worried and didn't know who else to talk to. Within a month, Coral was indispensable to my mother's real estate business. She'd volunteered to help with social media marketing, set up Instagram and TikTok accounts, created viral videos of house tours. Patricia's sales increased 40%. Mom started calling Coral her marketing genius and honorary daughter. Meanwhile, she'd call me only to ask why I couldn't be more helpful like Coral. When I explained I was studying 12 hours a day for boards, she'd say Coral managed to help while job hunting. She didn't know Coral wasn't actually looking for work, just living off my groceries and utilities while playing daughter to my mom. The family dinners were the worst part. I'd show up Sunday nights exhausted from studying, and Coral would already be there, had been there since noon, helping Mom cook. She'd tell stories about my apartment that made me sound disgusting dishes I'd left in the sink became mountains of moldy plates. My one request for quiet study time became demanding silence at all. Hours. My sister Hazel, 19 and impressionable, started believing I was this tyrant roommate who treated poor Coral like a servant. Coral would tear up just enough to seem vulnerable but not dramatic. "I don't want to cause problems," she'd whisper, while actively causing massive problems. The isolation happened gradually. Mom would plan lunches with just Coral, saying I was too busy anyway. Hazel stopped responding to my texts after Coral convinced her I was jealous of her freshman year success. Family group chats suddenly had a new one without me where they planned activities. I'd find out through Instagram Coral, posting photos at the pumpkin patch with my family, captioned, "Chosen family is everything." When I asked Mom about it, she said I'd been so negative lately, they wanted to protect my energy. Coral's words coming out of my mother's mouth made me physically nauseous. My boyfriend Enzo noticed before I did how calculated it all was. He's an EMT, trained to spot manipulation and crisis behavior. "She's not trying to be your sister," he said one night. "She's trying to replace you." I thought he was being dramatic until he showed me Coral's Facebook. She'd changed her last name to mine, said she was adopted by the best family ever, posted childhood photos of herself edited into our family pictures, had long posts about how Patricia was the mother she'd always deserved, how blood doesn't make family. My actual childhood photos were nowhere on Mom's social media anymore, all replaced with recent ones of her and Coral. The intervention happened on a Thursday night. I'd gone to Mom's house to pick up winter clothes from my old room, found the whole family waiting in the living room. Mom, Hazel, my aunts, even my cousin from Denver. Coral sat in my spot on the couch, holding Mom's hand, looking concerned. They'd prepared statements about my narcissistic behavior, my lack of empathy, my manipulation tactics. Every example was something Coral had twisted. Me asking her to buy toilet paper became financial abuse. Me studying instead of watching movies became emotional unavailability. Setting boundaries about overnight guests became controlling behavior. Coral cried perfectly on cue as Mom read about how I'd destroyed this poor girl's self-esteem. I didn't defend myself. Couldn't. How do you prove you're not a narcissist to people who've been programmed to see everything you do as narcissistic? I just sat there while my family listed my supposed sins, all fiction created by the woman nodding sympathetically beside my mother. The final blow was Mom suggesting I move out of my apartment so Coral could have stability, my apartment, that I paid for, while Coral contributed nothing. Mom offered to pay Coral's portion of rent since I'd been taking advantage of her. That's when I knew I'd lost them completely to her manipulation. The truth came out through pure luck. Enzo had been recording Coral without her knowing, perfectly legal in our state. He'd suspected something was off and wanted evidence. Got her at a bar with her actual friends, drunk and bragging about her con, how she'd identified me as an easy target in college, studious, trusting, with a grieving family, how she'd studied my family dynamics, learned exactly what Patricia wanted in a daughter. The recording was 40 minutes of her laughing about the intervention, calling my family pathetically desperate for attention, and me too stupid to fight back. She even mentioned her endgame, getting Patricia to legally adopt her as an adult, ensuring inheritance rights. I sent the recording to Mom without commentary, just the audio file and nothing else. The fallback was immediate and devastating. Patricia called sobbing, apologizing, begging for forgiveness. Hazel drove to my apartment at midnight, horrified at how easily she'd been turned against me. But the damage was done. They'd chosen a stranger over me, believed her lies without ever asking for my side. Coral disappeared that night, blocked everyone, moved cities. We found out later she'd done this before 3 other families in different states. She studied psychology, specifically to better manipulate family dynamics. My family's in therapy now, trying to understand how they fell for it. I go to some sessions, but mostly I keep my distance. This one makes me angrier than the career sabotage because family is supposed to be your safe space, you know? The way Coral studied Lennox's family like a science project, identified their weaknesses, then exploited their grief and loneliness, that's predator behavior. And the fact that she'd done this to multiple families, that's serial emotional abuse. The recording saved Lennox, but imagine if Enzo hadn't been there. She'd have lost her family forever to someone who saw them as marks in a long con. Speaking of long cons, Phoenix's story about Marlo faking cancer is going to make your blood boil. This woman shaved her head, forged medical documents, and raised $30,000 on GoFundMe, all to make Phoenix's wedding about her fake death sentence. And the worst part? She'd done it before at someone else's wedding. Some people don't just want attention, they want to be the tragedy everyone else's joy revolves around. She shaved her head, forged medical documents, and turned my wedding into her farewell tour. My name's Phoenix. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a high school teacher in Denver. 6 months ago, I discovered my childhood friend Marlo had been faking cancer to hijack my wedding. She raised $30,000 through GoFundMe, demanded we move up the ceremony for her final wish, and turned every planning session into her bucket list discussion. The whole time, she was perfectly healthy, just addicted to being the center of attention during other people's milestones. Marlo and I had been friends since 2nd grade. She was always dramatic, the kid who fainted during school plays, had mysterious allergies that changed weekly, always had some crisis happening. But she was also fun, spontaneous, loyal when it counted. When I got engaged to Sterling last year, she seemed genuinely happy. Immediately started planning my bachelorette party, created a Pinterest board called Phoenix Rising, sent me dress ideas daily. I asked my friend Juno to be maid of honor since she'd been there through my entire relationship with Sterling, but Marlo was definitely in the wedding party. 2 months after the engagement, Marlo called crying. Stage 3 lymphoma, she said. The doctors gave her maybe a year with treatment. The timing felt weird right after I'd posted about dress shopping, but what kind of monster doubts a cancer diagnosis? She had paperwork from Colorado Cancer Center, prescription bottles, even a port scar on her chest. I drove to her apartment that night, held her while she sobbed about not living to see 30. Sterling and I discussed postponing the wedding so she'd be comfortable, but she insisted we keep planning. I need something beautiful to focus on, she said. The guilt trip started immediately. When I mentioned Juno was my maid of honor, Marlo broke down. I understand, she whispered. I just thought maybe for my last chance to be in a wedding. By the end of that conversation, she was co-maid of honor. Then she needed the wedding moved up because chemo would make her too weak by next summer. We lost our deposit on the June venue, scrambled to find something for March. Every vendor meeting became about accommodating her treatment schedule. The florist needed to avoid certain flowers that might trigger her nausea. The caterer had to plan a special menu for her compromised immune system. She started a GoFundMe without telling me, using photos from my engagement shoot. Help Marlo fight cancer and celebrate life, featured pictures of us through the years, ending with her at my wedding dress, fitting, bald head covered by a silk scarf. The description talked about her dream of seeing her best friend married before she died, $30,000 in 3 weeks. My future mother-in-law donated $5,000. My coworkers organized fundraisers. The local news did a segment on friendship conquering cancer. Marlo gave interviews about how my wedding was keeping her alive, giving her purpose to fight. The wedding planning completely derailed. Every decision went through the filter of Marlo's illness. She'd cry if I picked colors that reminded her of the hospital. My bachelorette party became her last girls' trip, focused on her bucket list instead of celebrating my marriage. She gave speeches at every event about how grateful she was to witness true love before dying. Guests started calling it Marlo's farewell tour behind my back. Sterling was getting frustrated but felt too guilty to say anything. Who complains about a dying woman stealing attention? Juno, who's an actual nurse at Children's Hospital, started noticing inconsistencies. Marlo's medical timeline didn't match typical lymphoma progression. Her symptoms appeared and disappeared based on convenience. She was supposedly on intensive chemo but never lost weight, never had mouth sores, kept her eyebrows and lashes despite being completely bald. When Juno gently asked about her oncologist, Marlo got defensive, accused her of jealousy. But Juno kept watching, documenting things that didn't add up. The port scar looked more like special effects makeup. Her prescription bottles had labels that seemed printed at home. Everything unraveled when Garrett reached out on Facebook. He was Marlo's ex from college, saw the GoFundMe shared in our alumni group. His message was simple. She did this at my sister's wedding 2 years ago. Fake brain tumor. Raised $20,000. Please be careful. He sent screenshots of her old social media, different cancer, same playbook, shaved head, tearful posts, fundraiser, using the bride's photos. His family had discovered the truth when they called the hospital to send flowers and found no patient record. They'd tried to press charges, but Marlo disappeared, deleted everything, moved states. I hired a private investigator with some of the wedding budget. Within a week, he confirmed everything. Marlo had never been to Colorado Cancer Center. The paperwork was forged using templates from online. The prescription bottles contained vitamins. The port scar was professionally applied, temporary tattoo, reapplied every few days. She'd been taking acting classes specifically focused on medical portrayal and had a makeup artist friend who specialized in illness effects. The investigator found 3 other instances in different states, always targeting weddings or baby showers, always cancer or terminal illness, always disappearing when discovered. The confrontation happened at what she thought was her chemo party, a celebration she'd planned before starting aggressive treatment. 50 people showed up to support her. I had the investigators report Garrett on FaceTime and the police waiting outside. When I started reading the evidence, Marlo tried to faint, then cry, then rage, called me heartless for attacking a sick woman. But when I showed the GoFundMe donors the proof, her mask completely dropped. She actually smiled and said, "You never deserved to be the center of attention anyway. You're boring. I made your wedding interesting." The police arrested her for fraud. The news station that had featured her did a follow-up expose. The wedding happened in June as originally planned. Small, intimate, drama-free. Marlo was awaiting trial, banned from contacting me. The GoFundMe money was returned to donors. But the damage lingered. Some people still thought I'd betrayed a sick friend. Others questioned why I hadn't noticed earlier. The wedding, which should have been about Sterling and me, would always be associated with Marlo's cancer scam. She'd wanted to be the main character in my story, and in a twisted way, she succeeded. Even writing this, I'm talking more about her than my actual marriage. If you're still listening to this story, consider subscribing, otherwise you might miss what happened next. The audacity of faking cancer for attention is beyond comprehension. But what really gets me about Phoenix's story is how Marlo weaponized everyone's compassion. She knew people wouldn't question cancer, wouldn't doubt someone dying, wouldn't deny a final wish. That's not just lying, that's exploiting humanity's best instincts for narcissistic supply. The fact she did this repeatedly, targeting life celebrations specifically, that's someone who can't stand other people's joy unless she's the tragic center of it. But speaking of people who can't stand others' success, wait until you hear what Dimitri did to Ronan. This guy moved into Ronan's apartment rent-free, then convinced everyone that Ronan was his stalker. Imagine paying someone's bills while they're filing police reports saying you're obsessed with them. And the whole time they're literally living in your spare room, eating your food, using your Netflix password. I was paying his rent while he told people I was obsessed with him. My name's Ronan, I'm 25 years old, and I work as a software engineer in Portland. 2 months ago, I finally evicted my former friend Dimitri from my apartment after discovering he'd been telling everyone I was his stalker. While living rent-free in my spare room, eating my food, using my streaming accounts, he was filing police reports about feeling unsafe and posting Instagram stories about his obsessed former friend who wouldn't leave him alone. The level of delusion required to claim someone is stalking you while you're literally squatting in their home still breaks my brain. Dimitri and I met in college, both computer science majors who bonded over late-night coding sessions and obscure anime. After graduation, I landed a remote job with a Seattle startup while he pursued his art, abstract, digital pieces that never sold. 8 months ago, he got evicted from his studio for non-payment. Just a few weeks, he promised when I offered my spare room until my NFT collection takes off. He was charming, cooked amazing Thai food, kept the apartment spotless. Even my roommate Yuki, who's usually skeptical of everyone, thought Dimitri was a positive addition to our space. The narrative shifting started within a month. I overheard him on the phone telling someone he was staying with Ronan to help with his depression. Complete fiction. I'd never had depression, wasn't in therapy, hadn't asked for help. When I confronted him, he gasped like I was paranoid. "I was talking about my other friend Roman," he said. "Why would you think everything's about you?" Classic gaslighting, but I didn't recognize it yet. Then our mutual friend Bash mentioned Dimitri had told him I was going through a rough time and needed companionship. The story was spreading that Dimitri was some kind of caretaker, sacrificing his time for my mental health. The Instagram posts were subtle at first. Photos from my apartment with captions like, "Sometimes you have to be the stable presence in someone's chaos." Videos of him cooking with, "Taking care of those who need it most," written across them. My apartment became his backdrop for this savior narrative. When I asked for rent contribution after month 3, he told our friend group I had boundary issues and was financially controlling. Bash actually texted asking if I was okay. Said Dimitri was worried about my possessive behavior. I was literally just asking for $300 toward a $2,000 monthly rent. Then came the dates. Dimitri would bring people over, introduce me as his friend from college who's having a hard time letting go. He'd tell them I was obsessed with our friendship, couldn't accept that people grow apart. One woman, Jessie, later told me Dimitri had described me as someone who followed him to Portland, got an apartment near his, and manipulated him into staying close. The reality? I'd lived in Portland for 2 years before Dimitri even visited. He moved here because he had nowhere else to go. But his dates believed him because who would lie about something so checkable while living in the supposed stalker's apartment? The police report shocked me most. I only found out because the officer came to my door for a wellness check. Dmitry had filed a report saying he felt unsafe, that I was monitoring his movements, going through his belongings, threatening him when he tried to leave. The officer looked confused when I explained Dmitry was a non-paying guest I'd been trying to evict for months. Showed him texts of me begging Dmitry to find his own place, offering to help with deposits, even sending him apartment listings. The officer said it was a civil matter, but warned me about the report's existence. That's when I realized how serious this was getting. My roommate Yuki had been watching everything from his night shift schedule perspective. He'd seen Dmitry practicing conversations in the bathroom mirror at 3 a.m., rehearsing concerned expressions, testing different ways to say, "I'm worried about Ronan." He caught him taking photos of my belongings to post with captions about dealing with someone who won't respect boundaries, Yuki said. Dmitry would spend hours crafting social media posts while I was in work meetings, carefully constructing this alternate reality where he was the victim. The scariest part was how believable he made it seem. Jessie reached out after their third date, concerned about the stalking situation. Dmitry had told her I was escalating, showing up at his workplace. He didn't have a job, calling him at all hours. I had him muted. Even hacking his accounts, he was using my Netflix password. She wanted to warn me that Dmitry was considering a restraining order. I invited her over, showed her the lease, with only my name, bank statements proving I paid everything, screenshots of Dmitry begging to stay longer. Her face went white. "He's living here? Right now? While telling everyone you're stalking him?" She dumped him immediately and helped me document everything. The eviction process took 30 days legally, during which Dmitry escalated dramatically. Posted daily about feeling trapped, unsafe, monitored, started a GoFundMe for escaping an abusive situation, using photos taken in my apartment, told people I'd threatened to kill him if he left. Meanwhile, I was literally paying a lawyer to force him out. Our entire friend group was divided between those who believed him and those who knew the truth. Bash finally saw through it when Dmitry claimed I'd stolen his inheritance money. Bash knew Dmitry's parents were both alive and middle-class teachers in Idaho. The truth came out fully when I found Dmitry's notebook during move-out. Pages of notes about his social experiment in narrative control. He'd documented every lie, tracked who believed what, rated people's gullibility. There were sections on optimal victim presentation and leveraging housing insecurity for sympathy. 3 other names were listed as previous hosts, with notes about how long he'd lived with each, what stories worked best. He'd been doing this for years, finding generous people, moving in, then flipping the narrative to make them seem unstable while he lived rent-free. After eviction, Dmitry tried suing me for emotional distress and illegal eviction. His lawyer dropped the case when presented with evidence. He moved to Seattle, probably running the same scam on someone else. I still have friends who think I stalked him, who believe his version despite overwhelming evidence. The mindfuck of being accused of stalking someone who was literally parasitically attached to my life still affects me. I triple-check my door locks, document every interaction, save every receipt. He stole more than free rent. He stole my ability to trust my own reality. The sheer audacity of living in someone's home while painting them as a stalker is next-level manipulation. What terrifies me about Ronan's story is how Dmitry documented it all like a science experiment. These people don't just lie, they study lying, perfect it, turn it into an art form, and that notebook with previous victims, that's serial predator behavior. The fact that some people still believe Dmitry's version despite evidence shows how powerful a crafted narrative can be over objective truth. Ready for something even more twisted? Salem's friend Breyer didn't just want to be like her, she literally became her, stole her identity, dated her ex pretending to be her, opened credit cards in her name. Imagine finding out your best friend has been living as you online, sending intimate photos to strangers while using your face. That's where we're heading next, and it gets darker than you can imagine. She didn't just want my life, she literally pretended to be me online. My name's Salem. I'm 24 years old, and I work as a graphic designer in Nashville. 3 months ago, I discovered my friend Breyer had been systematically stealing my identity, not just my style or personality, but my actual legal identity. She was dating my ex-boyfriend while pretending to be me, had opened 4 credit cards in my name, and was sending intimate photos to strangers using my pictures. The woman I'd trusted to help me through my breakup had decided to simply become me instead of supporting me. Breyer and I met at a yoga class 2 years ago. She was new to Nashville, didn't know anyone, seemed lost and lonely. I invited her for coffee after class. and we clicked immediately. When I went through a brutal breakup with my ex Corey 6 months ago, Briar was there every single night. Wine, terrible reality TV, letting me cry about wasted time. She'd sleep on my couch when I was too sad to be alone, brought me groceries when I couldn't leave the apartment. I thought I'd found the most supportive friend in the world. Turns out she was studying me like a blueprint. The transformation started subtly. First, she asked where I got my hair cut, went to the same salon. Then, she dyed her hair my exact shade of auburn, said the stylist suggested it. Started shopping at the same thrift stores, buying similar vintage band tees and high-waisted jeans. When she showed up wearing the exact same rare Nirvana shirt I owned, she laughed it off as a funny coincidence. Great minds, she said. My coworker Nix joked that she was turning into my twin, but I thought it was just admiration. Some friends influence each other's style, right? I was flattered she liked my aesthetic enough to copy it. Then came the dating apps. I wasn't ready to date yet, but Briar insisted I download Hinge just to see what's out there. She helped me pick photos, write my bio, even responded to matches for me when I was too anxious. Sweet, except she was screenshotting everything: my photos, my conversations, learning how I flirted, what I said to matches. A month later, I found out from a mutual friend that Briar had profiles on 3 different apps using my photos. Not similar photos, my actual photos. She'd tell matches she was Salem, 24, graphic designer. When guys would say they'd seen me before, she'd claim I had a stalker making fake profiles. The Corey situation made me physically sick when I discovered it. My ex who'd cheated on me, who'd destroyed my self-esteem, who I was finally getting over. Briar had been texting him from a Google Voice number, pretending to be me wanting closure. Sending him paragraphs I'd written in my journal that she'd photographed while I was in the shower. She told him I missed him, wanted to work things out, but needed to take it slow. They'd been talking for 2 months. She'd even met him for coffee once, claimed she was my representative because I was too nervous to see him myself. He believed it because Briar knew every intimate detail about our relationship. The credit cards were discovered by accident. I was apartment hunting, ran a credit check, found 4 cards I'd never opened. Maxed out, $8,000 total, all opened in the last 3 months. The purchases were disturbing clothes in my style, a MacBook like mine, even a tattoo appointment at my artist for the exact constellation tattoo I had on my ribs. She wasn't just stealing my money, she was using it to further become me. When I called the credit companies, they had security question answers only Briar would know from our late-night conversations. My first pet's name, my childhood street, my mother's maiden name, all information I'd shared with my best friend. The photos were the worst violation. A guy named Florian showed up at my apartment for a date I'd never agreed to. He had screenshots of months of conversations, including intimate photos I'd sent him. My face from Instagram, photoshopped onto explicit images Briar had found online. She'd been having full relationships with multiple men as me, sending them pictures, making plans, even discussing our future together. Florian thought we'd been dating exclusively for 3 months. He'd bought concert tickets for us, planned a weekend trip, told his mom about me. The heartbreak on his face when I explained the truth still haunts me. My apartment became a crime scene of evidence. I found my mail had been redirected to a P.O. box. My spare key was missing she'd been entering when I was at work. My laptop had spyware installed, tracking every password, every email, every private message. She'd photographed my passport, my social security card, my birth certificate. In her apartment, police found what they called an identity theft kit, fake IDs with my name and her photo. Copies of my signature practiced hundreds of times. Even voice recordings of me she'd made secretly to study my speech patterns. The confrontation happened at the police station. Briar didn't deny anything, seemed almost proud. "You wasted your potential," she said. "I could be a better Salem than you ever were." She genuinely convinced herself she deserved my life more than I did. Said I was ungrateful for my job, my apartment, my opportunities. She'd grown up poor, struggled for everything, saw my middle-class life as paradise. I didn't appreciate enough. In her mind, she wasn't stealing, she was claiming what should have been hers. The detective said it was the most elaborate identity theft case he'd seen that wasn't financially motivated. The legal aftermath is still ongoing. Briar was charged with identity theft, fraud, and cyberstalking. But the damage was deep, my credit destroyed, my sense of self shattered, relationships with people who thought they were dating me ruined. Corey was devastated to learn he'd been manipulated again. Florian testified at her trial, said he'd fallen in love with someone who never existed. I had to close all social media, change my number, move apartments. She'd made my own identity feel unsafe to inhabit. Even now, I wonder if people are talking to me or some version of me she created. Identity theft is violation enough, but what Breyer did goes beyond crime into existential horror. She didn't just want Salem's life, she wanted to erase Salem and replace her entirely. The detail about her practicing signatures and recording speech patterns, that's not jealousy, that's premeditated identity murder. And telling those men they were dating Salem, creating whole relationships under her name, that's a level of violation that changes how you exist in the world forever. But the last story might be the most disturbing yet. Zephyr's best friend Thalia was running a hate account about her with 10,000 followers. Not just venting, documenting, photographing, monetizing Zephyr's every embarrassing moment for entertainment. Imagine your most vulnerable moments being turned into content for strangers to mock, while your best friend holds your hand and tells you everything will be okay. 10,000 followers watched her document everything wrong with my life. My name's Zephyr, I'm 22 years old, and I'm in my final year of nursing school. 2 months ago, I discovered my best friend Thalia had been running an anonymous hate account about me for over a year. She had 10,000 followers watching her mock my struggles, post unflattering photos, and share my private messages with cruel commentary. While I cried to her about anxiety and school stress, she was turning my pain into content for strangers' entertainment. The girl who called herself my platonic soulmate was monetizing my humiliation through sponsored posts. Thalia and I were paired as lab partners freshman year, randomly assigned by our professor. She was bubbly, outgoing, everything I wasn't as a shy 19-year-old from rural Oregon. We bonded over late-night study sessions, shared test anxiety, and our matching coffee addictions. By sophomore year, we were inseparable. Shared clothes, inside jokes, synchronized class schedules. She'd defend me in class discussions, hype up my Instagram posts with paragraphs of love, called us twin flames separated at birth. I trusted her with everything, my learning disability diagnosis, my complicated relationship with my parents, my deepest insecurities about not being smart enough for nursing school. The anonymous account started appearing in my comments junior year. Nurse Disaster would leave subtle digs that felt too specific to be random. Maybe if you studied instead of complaining, you'd pass pharmacology. Things only someone close would know. When I showed Thalia, she was furious on my behalf. Helped me report the account, held me while I cried about cyberbullying. She even posted on her story defending me, calling out whoever was hiding behind anonymity. The account went quiet for a week, then came back harder. Started posting photos of me sleeping in the library, eating alone, walking to class in yesterday's clothes. Always unflattering angles, always with vicious captions. The escalation was gradual but devastating. The account would post story times about a delusional nursing student, with details changed just enough for plausible deniability. My panic attack during clinical became girl has meltdown over taking blood pressure. My ADHD medication became popping pills to get through basic tasks. Every vulnerable moment I'd shared with Thalia appeared twisted into content. She'd comfort me about the posts while secretly screenshotting my tears for her next upload. When I started dating Orion, she helped me process my trust issues while simultaneously DMing him fake screenshots, suggesting I was cheating. The account grew rapidly, 10,000 followers within 8 months, all there to watch this anonymous person destroy Disaster Nurse. Thalia would show me supportive memes while posting my private texts with commentary like, "The delusion is real," and "How is she going to be a nurse when she can't even handle stress?" She started taking secret photos during our hangouts. Me without makeup, mid-bite, crying during movies. Each photo carefully selected to make me look my worst. The comment sections were brutal. People discussing my weight, my skin, whether I was too stupid for healthcare, if I should just give up. Thalia would read them while sitting next to me, pretending to scroll Instagram. My classmate Sage recognized the writing style in a particularly cruel post about my learning disability. It used specific phrases Thalia always said, had her characteristic spelling errors, even her favorite emojis. Sage had noticed Thalia taking photos of me during lectures, always on her phone when I was struggling. She came to me with screenshots, timestamps, showing Thalia posting while literally sitting beside me. The evidence was overwhelming, but I couldn't believe it. This was my best friend, the person who knew everything about me, who'd held me through every breakdown. Sage said that's exactly why she could hurt me so precisely. Thalia's roommate Echo confirmed everything. Said Thalia spent hours daily on the account, had spreadsheets tracking engagement, even accepted sponsorships from study apps and energy drinks. She'd laugh at comments, screenshot the cruelest ones, plan content calendars around my schedule. Echo had watched her edit photos to make me look worse, draft posts while on FaceTime with me, even record our conversations for content inspiration. The account was generating about $800 monthly through affiliate links and sponsored posts. Thalia was literally profiting from destroying my mental health while pretending to support me through the damage she was causing. I catfished the account, creating a fake profile as a fan who loved the content. Thalia took the bait immediately, started DMing this fake account behind-the-scenes content, unpublished photos, even voice recordings of me crying. She bragged about how Disaster Nurse had no idea how easy it was to maintain the friendship while running the account, sent screenshots of our private texts in real time, asking what the fan wanted to see next. When I asked why she did it, she said Disaster Nurse was too pathetic not to mock and that someone this weak shouldn't be in healthcare. She genuinely believed she was doing future patients a favor by trying to force me out of nursing. The confrontation happened publicly. I had everything, screenshots, timestamps, proof of sponsorships, Echo's testimony, posted it all on my actual Instagram, tagged everyone from our nursing program. The university's social media exploded. Thalia tried denying it, then claiming it was satire, then saying I couldn't take a joke. But the evidence was undeniable. Her marketing internship fired her when they discovered she'd used company tools to grow the hate account. The nursing program put her on academic probation for violating their ethics code. The account was deleted, but screenshots lived forever in our university's gossip channels. She lost her friends, her reputation, her internship, everything. She started a podcast last month called Cancelled for Comedy, claiming she's a victim of cancel culture. Episode 1 is 40 minutes about how I betrayed her by exposing the account, how I couldn't handle constructive criticism, how sensitive people are ruining humor. She still doesn't understand that documenting someone's pain for entertainment isn't comedy, it's cruelty. The 1,000 people who listen to her podcast are the same ones who enjoyed watching her destroy me. But now everyone knows who she really island. She can't hide behind anonymity anymore, can't pretend to be my friend while stabbing me in the back. That's the only victory I have from this. She has to own her cruelty now. The calculated nature of running a hate account while being someone's closest friend is a special kind of evil. What breaks me about Zephyr's story is how Thalia monetized the destruction, literally getting paid to document her best friend's pain, and holding her while she cried about the very posts Thalia had made. That's psychological torture disguised as friendship. The fact that she's now playing victim through a podcast shows these people never truly understand the damage they cause, or they understand and simply don't care. And if you thought these stories were wild, trust me, what comes next makes this look tame. Because the next one isn't just about betrayal, it's about losing everything you thought was real. Click here, and I'll show you why this next story might be the most disturbing one yet.